The sound of a slap echoed through the throne hall like a thunderclap against marble. She didn't cry. She didn't even raise her head. Her cheek burned red beneath the candlelight, but her voice stayed still, steady. "I told you the truth," she whispered. The courtiers around the marble dais dared not breathe. The man before her, the one the kingdom called the Alpha King, stood motionless, his palms still trembling from the strike. King Alaric's eyes, dark as storm-washed iron, fixed on the kneeling servant girl as if she were a ghost daring to defy him. The truth. His voice was sharp as the blade hanging from his belt. "You forged royal seals. You claimed blood, not yours. You will not speak of truth in my court." Her name was Alara. To most, she was nothing, just a maid brought from the southern provinces after a famine. But the way she held her gaze, proud even through tears, carried a strange, unbroken dignity that unsettled him. "I didn't forge anything," she said softly. "The letter found in my chest, it was already there when I was taken from the convent." "Lies again," he cut in, stepping closer. His boots struck the marble, echoing in the silent hall. "Do you think me a fool? You spoke my mother's name as if you knew her. How would a servant know the queen who died before you were born?" Alara flinched, but didn't bow. "Because she used to visit the convent. Because she—" Her voice faltered, eyes flicking toward the courtiers, watching like vultures. "Because she knew who I was." A murmur rippled through the hall. The king's hand clenched. He had built his throne on order, on certainty, and this girl was disorder made flesh. He stepped down from the dais, the long cape trailing behind him like spilled ink. His scent, a mix of steel, smoke, and the faint spice of wine, closed around her as he stopped inches away. "You speak as if you were born to her," he said quietly, dangerously. "As if you were royal." Alara's heartbeat thudded in her ears. "Maybe I was." The hall gasped. The king's jaw tightened. "Enough," he said, voice low with barely restrained fury. "Take her to the East Tower. She'll stay there until she admits who sent her." 2 guards seized her arms, dragging her away. Her head turned once, just once, and for a heartbeat, their eyes locked. There was no hatred in hers. Only something harder to name, something that stung him more than defiance ever could: sorrow. That night, rain lashed the palace windows like restless ghosts. The storm blurred the lanterns along the courtyard, where the king stood alone under the colonnade, soaked to the shoulders. He had not meant to strike her. He told himself she deserved it, but the image kept replaying, the fire in her eyes, the tremor in her breath when she said, "Maybe I was." He turned sharply when footsteps approached. Commander Thane, his oldest friend, bowed low. "My king." The girl refuses to speak further. "Should we continue the interrogation at dawn?" Alaric hesitated. "She still claims the queen visited her?" "Yes, sire. The same tale. She says the queen gave her a locket when she was a child." The king's gaze darkened. "A locket?" Thane nodded, producing it from a velvet pouch. The small silver pendant gleamed faintly, engraved with a sigil the king hadn't seen since his mother's death, a white rose encircled by stars. For a moment, the storm vanished from his hearing. That crest had been buried with the queen. No one alive should have had it. He looked at Thane sharply. "Where did she say she got this?" "She insists the queen herself placed it around her neck before she was taken from the convent. But we found no records of any orphan with her name." The king's hand tightened around the locket until his knuckles whitened. Something in his chest twisted, a memory of his mother's voice singing through candlelight when he was a boy. "If ever you're lost, my son, follow the white rose. It always finds its way home." He turned back toward the storm. "Keep her alive," he said at last. "No harm until I say otherwise." Thane bowed and left. In the East Tower, Alara sat on the cold floor, her wrists raw from the chains. She could hear the rain whispering against the stone, could smell the damp earth rising through the cracks. Despite the bruises, she pressed her palm over the locket at her throat, hidden beneath her dress. She had waited her whole life for someone to believe her. The nuns had called her mad. The soldiers who took her from the convent called her a liar. Yet the face she remembered in her dreams, the queen's gentle smile, had been as real as the scars on her hands. When the door creaked open, she expected more guards. Instead, the king himself entered, cloak dripping, eyes burning with something between anger and confusion. "You're bold," he said, voice low. "Even now you don't beg. You don't cry." "I've done both," she replied softly. "Neither changed anything." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "Tell me what you want."
"To be heard," she said.
For once. His gaze swept over her, the damp curls clinging to her face, the bruises on her wrists, the stubborn calm in her eyes. Something cracked quietly inside him, though he didn't show it. He reached out suddenly, grabbing the chain at her neck and pulling the locket free. "This," he said, holding it up. "Where did you truly get it?" Her lips trembled. "From your mother. The day she was taken from the convent courtyard. She said, I was not meant to stay hidden forever." For a moment, time itself seemed to stop. The king stared at the symbol, a white rose encircled by stars, and felt the room tilt. "You expect me to believe," he said slowly, "that my mother left an heir I never knew existed?" "I expect nothing," she whispered. "But truth has a way of surviving lies, even when we bury it under fear." The words struck deeper than any blade. He turned away, the locket trembling in his hand. Outside, lightning flashed across the courtyard, illuminating the rain-slicked marble. When he looked back, Alara's eyes were glistening, not with fear, but with quiet resolve. And for the first time in years, the king felt uncertain. The storm raged harder, the candles flickered out, and somewhere in the dark, a bell tolled midnight. He didn't know it yet, but that sound marked the beginning of the end, of the lie that built his crown, and the truth that could unmake his kingdom. The scream came first. A woman's cry echoing down the marble corridor, raw, terrified, and abruptly silenced. King Alaric dropped the goblet in his hand. Crimson wine splashed across the map-strewn table like blood. The storm outside had not ceased since the girl's imprisonment, and tonight it roared as if the heavens themselves were warning him. "Your Majesty!" Commander Thane burst through the doors, breathless. "The prisoner, someone tried to kill her." The king's chair crashed backward as he strode out. The corridors blurred around him, tapestries, torches, the flicker of fear in every servant's eyes. He reached the east tower to find guards scattered, the iron door hanging open, and Alara on the floor, half conscious, blood seeping through her sleeve, where a blade had grazed her. "Who did this?" His voice thundered. A trembling guard knelt. "We don't know, sire." The attacker fled through the servant halls. She shouted a name before she fainted. "Lord Marrow." Alaric's expression hardened. Lord Marrow, the advisor who had whispered poison into his ear for years, the one who had urged him to punish her, who'd burned the old queen's letters after her death. He knelt beside Alara. Her lashes fluttered, her skin ghost-pale. When she tried to speak, blood touched her lips. "Hush," he murmured, lifting her gently, cradling her against his chest. "You're safe now." Her eyes opened weakly. "I told you they feared the truth." And then she slipped into unconsciousness. In the infirmary's dim candlelight, the king stood motionless as the healer bound her wound. The scent of herbs mingled with the iron tang of blood. He could hear the rain still hammering the windows. The world seemed to pulse with the same uneven rhythm as his own guilt. "She'll live," the healer said. "But she needs rest. She's lost much blood." When the room emptied, Alaric sank to the bedside. Her hand lay still against the linen, small, cold, yet unbearably human. He thought of his mother's laughter, her secret trips beyond the palace, the rumors he had dismissed as mercy visits. What if those were not charity? What if they were love hidden in exile? He reached into his coat and pulled out the queen's old journal, found locked behind a false panel in the royal vault. His fingers trembled as he turned the last page. "If I am taken, remember, the rose has 2 stems. One for my son, one for the daughter I hid to protect the throne from those who would taint it with greed." His breath caught. The ink had bled with age, but the seal beside the signature was unmistakable, the white rose encircled by stars. He looked at Alara again. The curve of her jaw, the faint dimple at the corner of her mouth, his mother's face reborn. He rose abruptly and called for Thane. "Find Marrow."
Alive.
"I want his confession before the dawn." Dawn never came quietly in the palace. Bells tolled through the mist as torches blazed along the courtyard walls. Soldiers dragged Lord Marrow forward, wrists bound, eyes wild. Alaric stood atop the steps, a blade at his side, his cloak sweeping in the wind. Behind him, Alara watched from the balcony, pale but standing. "You tried to kill her," Alaric said coldly. "Why?" Marrow spat at the ground. "Because she's the ruin of your crown. The queen bore her with the Duke of Lyrian, a scandal buried with her corpse. If the world knows, your line is defiled." A murmur rippled through the courtyard. The accusation was poison, but the king's gaze never faltered. "You speak lies to save yourself," he said. "I speak what I saw." Marrow shouted. "I served her. I hid the child. I burned the proof. And when this girl appeared, I knew the past had come for you." The words struck like daggers, but something inside Alaric had already broken open. He looked toward Alara, her eyes wide, trembling, a storm of confusion and hurt. "Is it true?" she whispered. He shook his head slowly.
"No."
"He distorts what he cannot own." Then, to the guards, "Take him to the dungeons. He will speak the whole truth under oath." Marrow's laughter echoed as he was dragged away. "Truth, your majesty, can tear thrones apart." When the courtyard emptied, silence fell between them like smoke. Alara's voice was barely a breath. "So it's true. I am your mother's daughter." He faced her, eyes raw, voice stripped of pride. "And my sister." The word hung heavy between them, an impossible bridge and a shattered mirror at once. But she stepped closer, shaking her head.
"No."
"The queen said she hid me to protect the throne. But she never wrote who my father was." He froze. "Then who?" "I don't know," she said. "Only that she whispered your name to me in her final breath. Find Alaric. He'll finish what I couldn't." His chest ached with something beyond comprehension, guilt, love, recognition, grief all twisting together. "She meant the crown," he said hoarsely. "Not me." But even as he spoke, he wasn't sure. That night, the storm finally broke. The moon spilled across the drenched gardens, silvering the world. Alara stood beneath the colonnade, looking out at the trembling roses. Alaric approached quietly, his steps soft on the wet stone. "When I was a boy," he said, "my mother told me power without mercy is a curse. I forgot that. I punished you for a lie that was never yours." She turned toward him, her eyes glistening. "You couldn't have known." "I should have listened," he murmured.
"To you."
"To her memory. To the truth buried in my own blood." He reached out, not as a king, but as a man stripped bare of all armor. "Stay in the palace. As the queen's heir, you have every right. Let me give you what was stolen." She hesitated, watching the man who had once condemned her now standing like a penitent before his own soul. "You cannot give what was never yours to take," she said softly. "But you can choose what you become after knowing." Lightning flared distant over the hills. For a heartbeat, their faces were the same. Two exiles of the same lie, bound by blood and loss. "I'll stay," she said finally, "but not as your prisoner, nor as your subject. Only as myself." He nodded slowly. "Then perhaps that is enough." For the first time since his mother's death, the king smiled, not in victory, but in surrender to truth. Days later, when the kingdom learned of the lost princess returned, songs filled the streets. The white rose banner flew again from the towers. Yet even in celebration, Alaric kept her locket beside the throne, a reminder that love, once punished, had become his redemption. In quiet moments, he would still hear her voice from that first night. "Maybe I was." Now he knew she always had been. The queen's daughter, his salvation. And somewhere deep within the palace, a hidden journal page remained unread, sealed under wax, carrying the one truth neither had seen yet, a name scrawled in the queen's trembling hand. Father, the king of Lyrian. The candle beside it flickered, guttered, and died.